Okay. Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Hey, our listeners have been asking about your hip. How is it healing?
Well, it's healing up well. I can tell you that I am no longer fully qualified to be two hippies, but I can be one hippie, natural, and the other is a partial replacement. And the pain of it is going away. The walking ability is coming back. I'm using a cane now, but I'm getting to the point where I can walk in as much as, for me, a natural walk is anything that looks normal. I can walk normally.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad that things are coming along here.
Yeah.
Now you have a new ball socket on your hip.
Yeah, the socket did not break,
But the ball thing did.
but the ball was crushed and had to be replaced with what they do these days, which is a I think it's actually Teflon coated titanium or something equally fancy.
Okay, so you're going to be setting off the alarm systems
Yeah,
in
I'm not going to
airports.
be able to fly without a lot of suspicion.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling better. Now, last week we talked about personality and decision making. And it's interesting, Ralph. Up on YouTube, that is one of the most popular podcasts that we've done in quite a while.
Yeah, and one of the things I was going to ask you, Jim, you talked about the other day. We were having a coffee together, and you talked about the decision making matrix or layout of ways to make decisions. And rational decision making seemed to be one of the most effective.
Yes, I think that's true. Well, remember last week we talked about refrigerators.
Yeah,
Remember that one? Okay.
yeah,
We talked about the $1,700 refrigerator and the $900 one.
yeah.
And impulsively, somebody might say, "Well,
I want the big
I want
spread.
the big, yeah." And somebody else might say, "Well, I want the $900 Crosley."
I don't want the $900 Crosley, but it's what I can afford.
Mm-hmm. And
So
rationally, I'll take what I can afford.
rationally I'll limit myself to what I can afford.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
that might be one of the factors that you would include in rational decision making. But remember, I talked about a matrix.
yeah,
So you might have half a dozen things. Price might be one. Appearance might be another one. I know that your wife would like something in her kitchen that looks nice, right?
you're right.
The ice maker, remember that one?
Yeah.
Might be another one. Having, hey, something just as basic as having a light when you open the door versus
That would be
no
good.
light.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Lighting a candle is a genuine pain in the something.
Yeah. And there might be another factor that has to do maybe with how easy it is to maintain, like
Yeah.
is it frost-free or something like that.
One of the interesting things, Jim, that I have run into in the past is guys who are absolutely loyal, brand loyal
Oh, yeah.
to a particular brand of truck.
Yeah, we've seen that up in the Sioux when we were growing up. I'm a Ford person. I'm
Yeah.
a Dodge person.
I'm a
Chevy.
GMC person.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
so you say, well, wait a minute. This year it looks like, based on consumer reports, that Dodge has put out a better truck. I don't care. I'm a Ford person.
Yeah, right. So people make decisions on a lot of different dimensions. The rational one is probably the most time consuming because you've got to come up with your criteria or your things that
Matrix,
you rate. And then you have to rate them. You have to give them some sort of a quantitative score. Okay, like low price gets a 5, the high price gets a 1. Okay, so but I really like this particular style. It looks beautiful in my kitchen. Gets a
That gets a
5,
5.
and the not so great one gets a 1, and you have to sit down and do that.
Yeah.
And if you've got more than one person in your life, like a lot of us do, that's going to require some consensus. Now, there are a couple ways we can do it. I could sit down with my wife and I could say to her, you rate these, and then I'll rate them, and we'll come up with a score, and we'll average the score, and that's the decision that we'll make. How about that, honey? No. Oh, how come? Well, I want to talk to you about it.
As we go along, I want to talk to you about it. Yeah. No, that gets us to the actual part of the personality issues that I wanted to talk to you about today, which is the issue of emotional intelligence.
Okay, emotional intelligence.
Or emotional intelligence as it affects personality.
Okay, so we had the work back in the 90s, I think, of Daniel Goleman, right?
Right.
He was the father of emotional intelligence. And he came up with several, I think 5 different factors that go into emotional intelligence. Now, I know that you've written them down on this piece of paper in front of you, Ralph.
Right.
So help me out, okay?
Okay, so the factors are self-awareness,
Okay.
self-regulation,
Okay.
motivation,
Okay.
Empathy,
Okay.
feeling along with other people,
What do you mean by that?
yes,
Okay.
and social skills.
Okay.
So in this case, the example you gave, your wife wants to use her social skills as a negotiator.
Okay. Yeah.
To overcome your rational decision making. Now, you want to use your self-awareness that says, I have only so much money that we can afford.
I'm tired of being broke. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So, and ultimately, hopefully, people come together and say, okay, in a self-regulation world, we agree.
Yeah, this is the best we can come up with.
This is the best we can come up with. No, we still have motivation. We're still going to go out and buy a fridge, but we're going to find the best compromise.
Okay, yeah.
So
I wonder who does this better. Do I do it better than my wife, or does she do it better than I? Or in general, do males go with the rational and females go more with the emotional? What do you think?
I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Contingent. Okay. So generally speaking, if we start out with, I'm going to leave out for a moment here children under the age of 7.
Okay.
Okay, but I'm going to say from maybe 7 or 8 upwards, what we find is that females generally have better social intelligence.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And males generally have better computational and I'm going to, for lack of a better word, and I know I'm going to get bombed here, but I'm going to say logical,
Okay.
rational decision making.
Okay. Now, you might think of some cartoons like the Peanuts cartoons. Well, that's not going to apply. I mean, probably the one with the most emotional intelligence is Linus.
Yeah.
Probably the one with the least is Charlie Brown. And the one with the most logical, rational approach to life is Lucy.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe Snoopy has more emotional intelligence than
any of the other characters. Yeah. But, the interesting thing, Jim, is that if we start with preteens, we find that women are educated, socialized, and grow up in a world where they are made aware of the social construct of intelligence
Mm-hmm.
in a way that maybe men are not. So, one of the things that I can then say is okay, so, oh, it's very simple. Women are better at this than men. But then we come to a possible confound. And
What's that?
that is that women, as they age, so they get into their late 60s, 70s, 80s, we find that their social intelligence, their EQ, their emotional quotient, tends to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But men's tend to go up.
Okay.
Now, you offered a biological explanation for that that made a lot of sense to me.
Okay. That was the, let's see, the um, reduction in estrogen and progesterone with women. And, we all have the three gender hormones. We all have testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So the female hormones go down, and that uncovers the male testosterone hormone that has been suppressed all these years, and it kind of comes to the fore. And
In women.
In women, and just the opposite thing happens with men. The testosterone goes down, uncovering the progesterone and estrogen. They become more sensitive. That's one possible.
Okay,
Yes.
so it might be then that men become more sensitive as they age to social, for lack of a better term, social theory, and they say, okay, I understand more of what my grandson is saying about why he wants to buy a Tesla,
Okay.
even though it's 3 times the price of anything else he can buy.
Yeah. And we know your philosophy on electric vehicles too, Ralph. We won't get into it, but okay. But yeah, you're going to be more likely to live and let live in this case, instead of getting in your grandson's face and arguing with him about making rational decisions and getting a cheaper car,
Yeah,
etc. Right?
etc. Where it might very well be that his grandmother sits down and says, okay, let's do a matrix here and talk about your decision making. Without saying the word matrix, but let's list all the reasons you want a Tesla and all the reasons that you might not want to buy one.
Okay, the pros and the cons. That's
The pros and the cons.
another.
So talk to me about that.
Okay. So where you're going here, Ralph, is that the grandma is more relational in this particular case, right?
Right.
Okay.
But it's also coming from a logical base.
Okay. Yeah. So you, on one hand, might want to say to your grandson, just buy the darned GMC.
Yeah.
And the grandma might use this more rational decision-making approach. There are other decision-making approaches too, and they go along with personality. One is intuitive. With the 5 categories here from Goleman, is there anything that looks kind of like intuition?
Yeah, I think we could talk about empathy that might look like intuition.
Mm-hmm. Empathy is seeing the problem, the situation from the other person's point of view, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah. Again, with some of the male figures that you and I have grown up with, i.e., the teachers at Sir James Dunn School up in Sault Ste. Marie, right?
Right.
The most empathetic of the male teachers would say, "Just do it."
Right.
Whereas,
and that was the most empathetic.
right, the science teacher,
Yeah.
would hit the desk several times with a ruler and then, glare at you, daring you not to do it.
And I hasten to add that ruler was actually a yardstick, and every 6 inches it was taped with packaging tape so that when it hit the desk with a great resounding crash, it didn't break.
Okay, yeah. whereas we didn't have a lot of female teachers there, but I think that they were a little bit more empathetic than the males. Now, intuition. So what is that? That's kind of going with your hunch, right?
Yeah.
And what, you had empathy down there, but motivation was one. What's that
So,
first one there, Ralph?
self-awareness.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure how self-aware my science teacher was at Sir James Dunn. He just was aware of the rest of us slacking off and not doing what he thinks was, is the right thing to do. But I think that in terms of emotional intelligence, another factor that may be at play here, and it's another confound, might be education. I look around the university where I spent the last 50 years or so, and both the male professors and the female professors seem to be pretty much aware of who they are and what they're doing. So self-awareness seems to be real high.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. The other thing is, in terms of empathy, I think a lot of faculty are empathetic toward students who have particular problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If a student comes to you and certainly I've experienced this, and says, Dr. Baber, I have two children at home, and Wednesday classes. I'm sorry, I just can't find a babysitter. Uh, can I miss class? My answer might be no, I can't give you permission to miss class. But what I can tell you is that I'm not going to take a complete roster on Wednesday. And perhaps if you talk to your friend John, he could take notes for you.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I offer partial mediation and a solution, or at least a partial solution.
Okay. Now John comes to you and says, "Oh, I can't make it to class today." And you say, "Why?" Well, I'll tell you what, Professor Baber. I was down at the Vic last night, and I drank too many beers, and I'm just really hungover and sick. How do you handle that one? Get your butt into school, John.
Yeah.
Sit there and don't give me any problems.
Yeah. Take your nasty hangover to class and deal with it. I recommend that you take 4 aspirins and drink a lot of water.
Yeah, so the social situation itself is going to mediate, how we might handle, decisions.
So empathy does not mean
Not
I have blanket permission for you to run all over me.
right. It's not license. Okay, good point. Well, in terms of motivation, as one of the keys to emotional intelligence, I would argue that men are motivated by tangible kinds of things, like money, right?
Okay.
And I would argue that women might be motivated by more intangible sorts of things, like their beliefs, their I don't know, the inner condition of their thoughts.
And let me give you a real world example of that, Jim. I was talking today, reading today in our local newspaper, the agony column, the Ayn Rand equivalent, or Ann Landers equivalent, and a woman wrote in and she said, I'm 60. I'm working in an office where everybody is about 30. And I'm earning a really good income. but I can't seem to make any friends with my 30-year-old colleagues. They don't invite me for anything,
Okay.
but I'm getting paid really well. So what do I do?
I didn't realize that there were still advice columns like that in newspapers. I thought she would have taken her problem to social media and asked about
Probably, yeah.
5,000 people what to do. And in
However,
TikTok, they would have given her
the answer
answer.
that she got was uh,
find
realistically,
some 60-year-olds.
realistically, you're probably going to work for another 5 to 6 years. Enjoy your lucrative salary. Find other people your age to become friends with.
Yeah.
So, a rational decision making, but also continue your motivation so that when you retire, you have a higher pension
Oh,
or you have a contribution that you've made to your pension savings that will reflect a higher pension.
okay. So nothing about solving the problem of I can't hang out with the 30-year-olds, right?
Right.
It's sort of a long-term thing. Work long enough so you get more money in your pension check, and then you're going to be able to go down to Florida and hang out with the Golden Girls.
And in the meantime, in the next 5 or 6 years, you can dress more the way you want and enjoy, a new car every 4 years and whatever.
Okay.
So you've said you have a lucrative job. Hey, enjoy it.
Right. Good point. Enjoy
Now-
where you are.
Now the thing I suppose you could say is, well, if I'm supposedly higher in social skills than people who are male, how do I command the 30-year-olds to like me and hang out with me? Well, the answer is maybe you don't.
Maybe you don't. That's what I was thinking. Hey, this person probably has more in common with, say, somebody like me. We probably enjoy the same kind of music. With the 30-year-olds, I don't understand their comedy or their music or, may I say, even their politics. So, maybe the unrealistic thing here is, hey, I should be hanging out with my colleagues. I certainly have not spent a lot of time doing that at the university. Why? Because most of us are in our own little pigeonholes, and the philosophers don't talk to the
Sociologists who don't talk to the psychologists,
right.
who never talk to the economics profs. And
Yeah. So, maybe we've set it up kind of that way so that we've put some, barriers around ourselves. Well, this has been an interesting conversation, Ralph. So the takeaway here is that women from a fairly early age seem to have more emotional intelligence than guys,
I think so.
but that this seems to change over the lifespan.
Right.
Okay. And that might be
Now,
a good
the other thing
adaptation.
is that for guys, it also seems to change over the lifespan.
Right.
And so you end up saying, well, wait a minute. If only we could live to 300, we'd converge together. Unfortunately, that's not likely, at least in the next 10 years.
Yeah. When you proposed this topic, I thought, oh, here we go again. We're going to get our listeners all excited and angry with us, but I think we've handled it pretty well. I think we've done it. My emotional intelligence says that we've done a pretty good job of being even-handed with this. What do you think?
I think there were a couple of times that I stuck my foot into a bear trap, but I tried to pull it out real quick. But in the meantime, keep your stick on the ice.
Because we're all in this together.